in Stillwater, there was several men with Aryan Brotherhood vests that went through downtown, and I had done a rally about a month ago, or a little over a month ago, and all I knew of Stillwater was lumberjack days back in the day, and my friends would be like, "We're gonna go to lumberjack days and get plowed," and I'd be like, "Okay, good, have fun." But I never really went to Stillwater or experienced the culture here until I was at that rally, and there was a man on a $250,000 yacht shouting "Trump, Trump, Trump, all lives matter," and while this person was trying to honor all these lives that have been taken by police brutality. And then less than a few weeks later, you see Aryan Brotherhood vests kind of marching through the street. What does that mean to this community? What does that mean to you? Do you feel safe here? Or what are the connotations of all those happenings, I guess, to you?
I feel like we're still processing it personally, but I could start to feel the unrest in our community. I don't know if any of you would agree with that. After George Floyd, and we were maybe 2 weeks in to having some discussions happening, and then I could just feel like people were starting to get agitated. Like, we're done talking about this now. So when I would go out, I could just, energetically feel like going to Target, people looking, or either trying to overly engage, or people kind of looking in like dismay or disgust. And so I was just almost like, you guys, something's not right, So when that happened, it did not surprise me, but it did at the same time, And I think the result of it, in the conversations that are still kind of mustering around it, what I was happy to see is that they started talking about the ways in which white supremacist groups try to intimidate, and that was being like kind of honored as justifiable, because you are also getting on the sideline conversation of like, well, what? They didn't do anything. And to me, that's quite the white response, right? Like, if you've never been on the other side of that hate, and or I would get a lot of questions of like, well, I mean, what would they really have done? Where you're just like, okay, it could go from here to here, and I can't even believe I'm having to explain this. So it brought up just a lot for me in that, and a lot of it too in conversations I've had with white family members, and even my husband is like, how do we get people, if they're not directly experiencing that line of hatred coming straight at you, get them to wake up to like really understand it's there and prevalent. It's happening right underneath your nose, and you have no clue. And that's the sneakiness a lot of times of the white supremacist hate groups too, is they know how to work a crowd so that they are just directing it at their target, so that they aren't going to be blamed for things,
Do you feel I mean, this is a no-brainer question, but I guess what does that make you feel when somebody says, well, they didn't do anything, they just had their vests on? I mean, for me, I'm just like getting frustrated just hearing about it, but how did that make you feel?
It enrages me, it, and it's so hard to, you want to find those words, or to be able to articulate what that feeling is in the moment, and that this is not something you take lightly, at all. And I had a similar experience with my husband's business, which is a Fortune 500 company, and I was at a Christmas party and stepped into that Christmas party, and there were white supremacist skinheads at the party. And I was sitting amongst, the all-white staff, and there was one Peruvian friend of ours who worked there as well, and he was at the dartboard. So I sat there as they did the stare, broke off, came around the back side of the table from me. But meanwhile, I was really cognizant of all of the white coworkers around, like, oh, Sheila, can you pass me the drink? And completely oblivious to what's going on.
How did you know they were skinheads?
Shaved heads, combat boots, jackets. They had Aryan Nation, the jackets on.
Okay,
Yep.
well,
and so I turn and look, and I see the Peruvian man standing there, who looks at me. He's a good 20 feet away, nods his head, because he saw them the minute we walked in too. So it was this really learning opportunity for a lot of the other white staff and their wives that were like friend groups of us, because they, and then we tried to go downstairs, they followed us down there. they were upcharging our drinks. I mean, we had to leave the establishment basically in the end. But my point of that conversation and with what happened downtown is I was just like trying to point out that you guys, this is right under your nose half the time. So for you to say racism still doesn't exist, for you to say that all of these, it does, it's just you are not at the brunt of receiving that, you know? So that's how I felt. That came up for me when I saw the Aryan brothers in our town, and just looking to see where that conversation went with our white community. Like, are they gonna see it? Are they gonna push it down? And we got a mix of both. But I was happy to see such rallying.
When I first heard about it, I mean, I was just in tears. I mean, I really, I can feel the fear that mom, you know, what she would have felt. And yeah, whenever you hear these groups being here, I mean, that fear is like right there. And yeah, and so when you hear people say, well, they didn't do anything, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's kind of very disheartening to hear that. But I agree. I mean, I do see a change in the community that I haven't seen before, where there's a lot more people that are speaking out. I mean, businesses that have stepped up, and which again, you know, I haven't seen that before in Stillwater, but it totally makes sense. I mean, having these groups, you know, here is not going to help any business in Stillwater, you know, not at all. And it is a lot more helpful if people of all color can come here and feel safe. Yeah. That's what's going to help businesses. And so I think that there's, you know, a change in that, and this is just more recent. Otherwise, I you know, there's definitely, I mean, because there's such a perception of Stillwater being a white community, and I think we just miss out on so much, you know, with not doing the work to try to counter that perception. So I think it's, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and what about for you though? How did you feel like the business outreach for that was? Like, I felt like there was such fear for people to speak up, and I just thought, oh my gosh, like,
yeah,
you're afraid, you're white, you're afraid to speak up because of these hate groups and the retaliation of that. Like, hello, what do you think this is like for us, you know?
Yeah.
And I just was really, I thought that was really telling.
Because we really need white business owners to be up there. Like as a business owner, I can't be in the front lines. I mean, I just can't be. It's just not safe. And so it's really important for white business owners to step up. Yeah. And I am seeing that a lot more than I ever have. And then I see a lot more white businesses trying. So they may make mistakes, they might not get it right every time, you know? But just the fact that they're trying is hopeful. And again, I have not seen this, you know, even 5 or 6 years ago when I was here, there was nothing. It was so silent.
Wow.
And that's the only thing that gives me hope is that I do see some change, but we're definitely we're not there. We have a long way to go.
Long ways to go. Yeah. And it sounds like the silence like gives it permission to be there. You know, like, well, we're not going to say anything, so I guess you can stick here. And then also with the part of white business owners leading it, I mean, the to be gained as a community, the cost is just a little bit of discomfort, right? And so when we say this at rallies all the time, you know, the white people that are here, you know, you might feel uncomfortable, lean into it. And the cost is you're going to feel uncomfortable, but you're not going to get killed. You're not going to get, wrongfully accused and put into prison. You're not going to suffer any of the consequences that people of color have suffered in the past. And it's kind of up to white people to really, when you talk about white supremacy, and in my opinion, it's, you know, if you are kind of a part of the mess, it's up to you to kind of clean it up. you know, and it really takes white people leading conversations about whiteness, you know, and to put that burden on, you know, people of color, like it's just one more thing, you know, that we have to shoulder.
Oh, yeah. The past few months have been extremely exhausting.
Yeah.
And and I think that is the thing that we all feel as people of color, even more so. You know, that exhaustion.
Yeah.
And I think knowing too the businesses that finally this conversation is happening, that like as a biracial person sitting there, if anything were to happen, knowing I can turn and not have to like break down this conversation when I'm in the midst of like feeling traumatized, like they're gonna get it, you know? I mean, even that in and of itself, it's like, whoa, you mean I can turn and like people are gonna just be like, okay, we've got you, you know? Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, that's new.
It's huge, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm dealing with myself. Oh, no, let me educate you, you know?
Yeah,
it's like,
in the moment.
Cut the time,
yeah.
Or, you know. Nico and Sydney, do you want to speak to anything about seeing the Aryan Brotherhood or the pictures of it and how it affected you and what you hope will be the response going forward?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think first it made me really angry, and it made me really angry that there were people defending the freedoms of people to dress and to exist how they want, instead of being more concerned about how unsafe Sophia Rashid and her daughter did, and how unsafe it makes people of color in our community feel. That part made me really angry. But I would agree with that. The response that I've seen from business owners, I work at a shop downtown, and I remember after that happened, I was like, you know, I need to talk to my boss about this, because this, like, I want to feel safe. I want people that come into our store to feel safe. And she was very supportive and was saying, you know what, like, I don't want hate groups in here. What can I do? Let's ban them. And even to me, she was like, you know, Sydney, if anyone says anything racist to you, like, let me know, because I'll talk to them, just to know that someone had my back, right? Yeah. And that it was my boss. But I think there's still a long way to go. But, you know, I want people to feel like invited in to learn and know that it's okay to make mistakes along the way, right? Like, I saw this analogy, it was on Instagram, and it was about how just like learning about race and racism, it's like a ladder, and you can't like go from like the first rung of the ladder to like the last one, you know? It's like a process. So even if someone goes up one rung, that's an accomplishment, but to not even try is not acceptable.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have, so one of the responses I saw to that incident was that, oh, we're a river town and they're just passing through, and it's, you know, it's the outside agitator thing, right? It allows people to not take responsibility for the mess in their own community, and people are taking responsibility for the mess in their own community, right? And so there's still this idea that some people are holding on to, that there's no issue in Stillwater. But yeah, like everyone has been sharing, there are people making these starting the process, right? And starting the process, and it's messy, and there are mistakes, and it's beginning, and that's huge. It's like, you know, you walk into a space and you can like feel something's wrong, right? And so like I've had that countless times in Stillwater, and so it's exciting now that I've been to 2 rallies down in Stillwater, right? That's amazing.
2 more than you maybe have ever been to Stillwater.
Exactly, 2 more that have happened in Stillwater, as far as I'm aware, right? Yeah, and so that's huge. There was one other thing I was going to say, but it's left me now, and so.
Well, I was also going to point out that, could you say they popped up here because they feel comfortable here? You know, like you would never see that on 38th and George Floyd. I don't think you know, like your community's kind of responsible for, you know, just that was such an overt, blatant, just like thing. I remember seeing a guy in Duluth, he had shaved a swastika into the side of his dog, and he like kicked a rock and the dog turned its side and it showed me the swastika, and he felt comfortable doing that, you know, for a reason, right? And so, and also he's in a community where he can walk a dog with a swastika on the side of it. So this is a community where people feel like they can don Aryan Brotherhood vests in the community, and I would assume, as you said, Amy, it's got a long way to go.
Yeah, and that's the work that the community can do, is just make it so they don't feel comfortable. You know, so some of the initiatives that I'm hearing is to fix the problem is based on having them already here. I'd like to see more initiatives where we're making it so they don't want to come here. So something that's not, not reactive, but something it's going to prevent them from even wanting to be here, because we're so inclusive. We're so, we have all those signs up, and they don't even want to be in this town.
Yeah.
And I would rather work on initiatives in that respect as opposed to calling the police or trying to not have services. It's like because we're already assuming they're here.
And it's connecting back to that idea that like they didn't do anything wrong. Like they didn't do anything illegal, right? But they did do something wrong. They intimidated a woman and targeted a woman and her daughter, and that's wrong. And until the community like collectively and loudly says that is wrong, the fact that it's technically legal is going to be something people can fall back on, and that's not fair or right or safe.
I wish people could like see themselves in Sophia Rashid and her daughter, right? And like really put themselves in her shoes. Because I feel like there must be some type of like othering going on for people to just kind of be like, well, they didn't do anything, right? Whereas like if you are a mom and you think about that with your own daughter, man, like.
And flip it, if that had been a group of black people and they intimidated, a white family, you would probably see, calls for arrests, or, be on the lookout, wanted posters, it would be a whole thing. And it's interesting to see that some people can be passive or tacitly, I think their passivity is tacitly complicit with what's happening. So, I look forward to coming back to the community and talking to more people and seeing how this goes. I'm new to Stillwater and many other communities that are kind of having these conversations, and I wish the best for your business and everybody involved in this conversation. And thank you so much for your time and energy.